Right. Exactly. Okay. Awesome. Well, again, we're gonna we'll just briefly chat about what things we can be doing to prepare ourselves, right, for changes, which we don't know exactly what those will be, but we'll get into that. First, as always, love that Aaron Neubauer with Success Lending is here. Aaron, if you don't mind, let's just talk about what's going on in the market, but maybe some conversations you guys as lenders are having in regards to potential changes down the road, which I know you don't know what those changes are, but maybe you can give us your insight that you guys are talking about in your industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Can everybody hear me real well? I got a little buzz in the background here. Okay, cool. Well, kind of passionately about this, and I don't want to overstep because I am in the lending side. I am not an agent. I'm not licensed. Just because I spend more time with agents than I do loan officers doesn't mean I'm one of you. That said, when there is turmoil in any industry, there's opportunity. And I just feel like there's such a chance for people to step up that already are professionals, or for people that are ready to take the next step to really separate themselves in the industry. If you're a big time agent and you bring a certain level of care and professionalism and astuteness to the transaction and for your client, you're not worried about talking about money or using the C word that Bob or that Bruce used earlier there. We're not going to be used. No one's worried about that because you're bringing to the table. And I used an example last week when I was giving a presentation to a team. The reason why there's a general contractor when you're building a house is because someone needs to take charge of everything. That's how I look as an agent. You should have your HOI person. You should have your title. You should have your warranty. You should have your mortgage loan officer. You should have all your subcontractors lined up to make the transaction smooth. They're counting on you to be the tip of the spear to help them guide it. It's not just showing the house, right? So when we looking at this from a lending side, from a surface standpoint, it's great to be affiliated with a company like EXP because, I think the announcement came out Friday and they had like an hour-long YouTube video, like live video coming out within 24 hours, breaking it down. There aren't other brokerage shops that are doing that. They're really on top of it. So to have that support and background at a company like EXP is great. Now, I know there might be some other companies on this call here, but one thing that we're doing with EXP on the success lending side is working on the wordsmithing, because I don't want to get into too much because I don't know, that's above my pay grade, but it really sounds like how we're presenting compensation and how we're presenting ourselves from our services is going to matter on the contracts. And I do know we're starting to inkle into ways where they haven't gotten rid of seller pays. So maybe there's a way we can tie in the seller pays into how we as a lender can help make sure that buyer agents are compensated. I don't want to go into too much more detail because we are a little ways from that. But I'm just saying that if there's always going to be a way around, I don't want to say a way around it, but a new way to present things. We all thought HVCC was the end of the world. Oh my God, I don't get to call the appraiser and tell them how much value I need on this house. Like, okay, well, fine. So whatever the changes are in the industry, it's just about being ahead of them and understanding them. And when you have a company that's backing you like we have, I'm really not worried about it. I'm really not. Because at the end of the day, the people are still using you. And if you represent yourself correctly and provide a great service, your compensation will take care of itself.
Absolutely.
And that's in any sort of relationship or sales-based industry. So,
absolutely. Well, and I know, like you said, I know you can't really divulge too much, and we don't really even know what the end result will be from this settlement.
Correct.
So it's kind of silly to put the cart before the horse and start, trying to answer or solve problems or issues
Correct.
or changes that we don't know officially will be there. But having these conversations are really good, right? We're just starting to think about it, and we know there are things that we definitely can do. So for those of you, maybe you don't know, I don't know how much you're following this, but National Association of Realtors settled, the big lawsuit here. We had, I think Remax settled, Keller Williams settled, a couple of the big brokerages in that suit have settled. I think the only person left, or the group that's left, is that Home Services. They have not settled yet. So what NAR did is they went in and settled for in their, I guess, opinion or words, for the greater of the good of all, right? So part of their settlement was ultimately to then just end any future, cases against them and their members. So if you, as a real estate agent, or are also a realtor and a member of NAR, you would be exempt, from that. So, and also, obviously there was many provisions within that lawsuit, right? So it excluded those that have settled, it excluded NAR, it excluded NAR's members from future suits, it excluded small brokerages that do less than $2 billion a year. But it left the big brokerages are still, out there and could have future liability, right? For future cases. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And part of, again, I'm not an attorney. I mean, there's lots of stuff out there online that you can read. There's fact sheets about the settlement, so you can read it a little bit further yourself. But the key thing for us as real estate agents is that the proposed changes that haven't been approved yet, and could be subject to many appeals, what they're saying as part of the settlement is a couple different things, right? The first is that in the MLS right now, where we see the co-op amount, that the other brokerages, the listing brokerages offering to other brokers to bring a buyer, that spot will be eliminated. You will still have the ability to state whether or not a seller is willing to pay some type of concession. It just won't be a mandatory field. And there cannot be any tie to that offer of it being like conditional. You have to use a buyer's broker, or a buyer's agent. There can't be any condition on that seller concession for you to use a buyer broker, or that they pay a buyer broker. Okay. So again, how that gets rolled out later, I don't know in all the specifics of it, but we'll be able to still tell people if we have a seller willing to pay concessions. We just can't make it mandatory or have conditions on it. Okay. And then the other big thing will be, which I think is super awesome. I mean, how you handle it is up to you, but that you cannot go out and show a property to somebody without having a written agreement, which I think will help just across the board, right? It will help just kind of clarify things as we're jumping in a car to go show homes. Now, how that all shakes out, I don't know. Obviously, brokerages are already starting to put new forms into place. And starting to think about what that will look like. But really, until we know the official guidelines and what gets approved, it's kind of hard to know for sure how this will shake out, right? So really what all of this means, in my opinion, is, these changes, they're saying they'll probably happen sometime around July. Who knows, if anything gets appealed, if that pushes that timeline out. But really what this all means to us, you guys, is that we just have to become awesome and really good at presenting our value proposition, right? What do we bring to the table, and why is it important for a buyer to hire us, right? Because now if they've got to potentially pay for this is the moment where we have to provide our value like we've never done before. Okay. So, we see all these posts. I've been seeing a ton of them, right? We're not only realtor, we're counselor, we're mentor, we're therapist, we're whatever, right? We do a lot of stuff that people don't think about. And I've always said the value of an agent in this day and age of the internet is not to find you the house. You can go online and find your own home, as a buyer at any time. You can see what's active. You can go on Zillow, realtor.com, blah, blah. The value of the agent is once you've identified the homes that you want, right? Or once you found that home, here's where our value comes in, right? Setting your offer up so that it stands out, guiding you through the goods, the bads, the uglies of maybe decisions or terms that you want to build into an offer, being able to negotiate on your behalf, knowing what to look for when you are walking through the home with the buyer. You know, if you've been doing this as long as I have, you know, I'm 27 years into this industry, you know what to look for, right? I'm not an inspector, but I can guarantee you I know more than most on what to look for issues in a home. You have, as Aaron mentioned earlier, you have an arsenal of resources. You have the best lenders. You have the best title company. You have the best inspectors. You know where to go to if you're looking at a home that has stucco. You know the things to recommend, right? I mean, all of those types of things, those are the things you're bringing to the table. So how are you developing or thinking about building your value proposition going forward? Have you guys thought about that at all, or thought about how you're going to change maybe how you present yourself going forward with these changes? I mean, this needs to be a mastermind, you guys jump on in.
Kelly, go ahead. Someone else has something to say. Go ahead. Otherwise, I was going to chime
Oh,
in.
go ahead. Go ahead, Aaron.
You know, if I think it's a good thing that you have to get a signed contract before you go show somebody a house now. I mean, I don't know how we don't look at that as a positive, because you get an answer right then and there, and you get a chance to sell yourself. All the things that Kelly spoke about the value of once we find a home and as we're looking that a realtor does that people don't know, that comes later, but you still have to sell yourself now before they actually have a tangible, like visual evidence of all the things that you're doing. So it's still a relationship-based business. So how can you separate yourselves from anyone else that they're talking to? And that is with the other values. And since this is kind of a numeric issue that we're looking at right now, or a situation, I should say, it's not an issue, it's a situation. But you should have all the data. You should know, to be able to look, at the costs of the difference in home warranties, the difference in homeowners insurance, the difference in the inspections and loan estimates and things of that nature, and really be their guide to all of this. Because if I'm sitting down in front of someone, I know that I want to do things differently than anyone. Like, I'm encourage you, yeah, go meet with that other agent, go meet with that other loan officer, because I know after you talk to them, I'm going to look so much better. And that's just the personal confidence, because I know, now granted, does it always work out? No. But I know that I want to put my best foot forward. So my costs and what I charge to get something done isn't ever up for negotiation. But if it does get to that, that's the last resort we can always go with, but I never wanted to get to that point, I guess.
Right.
So I think that initial face-to-face for coffee, for lunch, worst case, it's a Zoom. But I think it's going to force people to get back to the handshake and building that relationship and getting some FaceTime in versus everything being automated and AI related. Everything can be done via, I don't even need to call somebody. It can all be done via text and email, and we can just bang this out. Like, I think that's part of where we're really headed, which is great, I think. But
Agreed.
Yeah, to piggyback on Aaron's comment, it gets us back to the basics with buyers, right? It gets us back to getting the buyer in, having that face-to-face consultation, and going through the buyer rep agreement and getting it signed and having them explain it. The curtain has now been pulled back on the commissions, which now they're out front. So that's just another conversation that we have that we necessarily haven't had with buyers in the past. The last thing I want to say, maybe not last thing, but in the chat, I've put a bunch of NAR links and information. And I think that's really all what this is at this point in time is trying to figure out what we can do now that we understand that will make us better for when July comes. And what that is getting in front of the buyers and, tailoring our scripts and getting that buyer rep sign and getting comfortable with that. And then whatever happens on the purchase agreement or the listing contract, that's nothing that we can control at this point in time because we don't know what's going to happen. Right. So
Even the buyer
gathering,
rep contract is gonna change. So like you
Yeah.
know, the one we have in existence, you know, and, you know, Pam, I'm assuming you have a buyer rep contract out there too. So, you know, I mean, knowing that as we know it will change for sure. So without worrying about specifics of how to even explain that, what can we be doing right now? Like, do you guys have a buyer consultation or a buyer presentation that you have when you meet with a buyer?
if you don't, I did put a link in the chat to EXP's new buyer consultation toolkit.
Yeah.
And they are, I will say that EXP is on top of things because they're rolling out information and things that we can use right away. And granted, they may change, right? But it's making something with the available information that we have right now and getting it out to the agents and having us start that change, so to speak.
So I would say if you don't have a buyer presentation, this is what I would be working on in my spare time between now and July, right? You've got to build a presentation that not only tells your buyers why they need to work with you, right? But really shows that you know what you're doing, right? The consult, oh, Pam, you're on mute. Oh, I can't hear you, honey.
I was trying to mute it because my puppy's squeaking her toy. So I'm sure you guys are annoyed. So
No, I can't hear it. So I would just say, you know, think about things that will go into this, you know, that will create value for you. I would say the first thing you definitely want to do is reach out to your past clients. If you do not have a way to get reviews or testimonials, I would be specifically honing in on those buyers that like, especially if it was like a great transaction or you really saved them money or, you know, you were able to negotiate and get them the deal, right? The things where you really, you were shining, those are the testimonials you want, right? Because you want to have a page or two of these in your little buyer packet or your buyer presentation from people that can like just put you at the top, right? Like they just think you walk on water. Those are the testimonials you want, right? I would even say if you have a great relationship with those buyers, find a way to do some video testimonials, right? I mean, that is going to speak volumes. And if I'm a buyer and I'm looking and I come across Pam's page and, you know, or I call Pam because somebody told me to call Pam and she says, yep, I'd love to meet with you. In the meantime, I'm going to send over just a little bit about me. So you know me, right? Before we meet, so that when we get together, I can really focus on you and what your plans are and how we can help you. What a great thing to be able to send them ahead of time. And they're going to watch these little videos or read these testimonials about how great Pam is. I'm going to be like, wow, she's a rock star. I can't wait to meet her. Right. So that just things like that, that you can build value, right? Have things like your preferred lender information, your preferred title company, your preferred inspectors, put pages together, right? In your little buyer packet. So you have all of that. I promise you, 90% of the other agents aren't going to do this. And you are already going to look more professional for the fact that you already have this little booklet or this guide or whatever you want to do, you know, put together, right? We did a presentation a while back on High Note. We use High Note a lot, and that is amazing. If you guys don't do it, it's a program. There's a free version of it, and then I think it's a minimal charge, but it allows you to put an online presentation together, right? Like a copy of, and Pam, if you missed that one, I don't know if you did, go back into Empire. It's recorded. It's awesome. So like when I like set an appointment with a buyer, I'm like, all right, I'm going to send you some information ahead of time. I'll send you a link to our high note presentation. There's a bunch of stuff in there that's really important. You can kind of go through before we meet, right? So then they go to I send them the link. They open it up. There's a little video from me saying, hey, thank you so much. I'm excited to meet with you. Here's a little bit about me, da, da, da. And it just kind of goes through a bunch of things that buyers are going to need. There's a ton of value that I have just provided them in forms and information that they're going to need to know about buying a home before we've even met. Like, I think that a buyer is going to be impressed with that, right? I've already provided value to you and you haven't even committed to using me, right? So these are the types of things, you guys, that you need to think about. What's going to make you stand out against all the other agents out there so that someone, because they now get to pick you. They really, really picking you is going to become more important because they're paying for it now, potentially, right? So they're going to want to make sure they're getting their biggest bang for their buck, for sure. The other thing I wanted to bring up is NAR just sent out something yesterday that they are offering their accredited buyer representation, or like that certification or designation. It's usually like a $300 fee to get this designation. For all of 2024, they're offering it for free. So like, I just signed up. I'm gonna take the couple courses. There's a few other things you have to do to actually get the designation. You have to have so many sales, you know, I mean, things we've probably already done, but they're giving the first, you know, class or whatever for free. So, you know, maybe that's something you want to do. I would check into that. What other things, you guys, are you thinking about maybe having to do or prepare in lieu of these changes?
I like what you were just saying of, to build out a video, even to send it to our incomplete, our entire database, not just a possible buyer, just shoot it out there of what we do. And maybe even if we could like start something where we can start an outline of, hey, what do you guys think would be good to put on there? Because usually, people call me, they're referred, and I do all the talk, but I like the idea of going, hey, yep, and I'll talk to them, but I'm also going to say, this is what I'm going to send you. I just had it was a lead, and she called and she wanted to see a home here. And this is just, I'll make this story really quick, because she was purchasing possibly a friend's home here. And so I showed her a home and she told me about the other home. I actually pulled some comps. I did some things for her prior. She ended up going to buy that. And I told her, I said, whatever you do, just make sure you get an inspection. It's an older home. It has been rental. I found out from my inspector, because I told her, I said, after you sign a contract, I'm out. I'm not going to jeopardize my license giving you any information. I found out from my inspector that the house was, he literally wrote POS. So, she'll text me different things. I said, well, do you have your inspection? I played stupid. And she goes, oh yeah. She's like, we're renovating the whole thing and the things there were minor. And I'm like,
Oh no.
this is where I could have negotiated stuff for her, all this stuff, and she's just going to buy this house with the problems. So
I know it. I always tell people, this is like an analogy I use. If you think about, we're from Minnesota here, so Minnesota Vikings, right? You think about the Minnesota Vikings. They're just not some kids playing football in the backyard. They know football inside and out. They have a knowledge of football. Every player on that team, way higher than the average person, right? But they're still going in every Sunday with a coach, right? They're not going in without a coaching staff guiding them and helping them through the game, even though they know it better than most. That's the hard thing, right? Is I want to just say, my gosh, you might think you might have bought many homes before and been through the process and understand the process, right? But you don't know what you don't know. And that's where the problem is going to happen. It's going to all be great if it all goes well. But when it doesn't go well is when you're going to wish you really had somebody there, right? So this is a perfect example of Pam's person. Is she thinks she's good till she moves into that house and the shit hits the fan, right? Then she's gonna be kicking herself in the butt. This is one of the largest transactions of someone's life, if not the largest transaction, right? Why would anybody navigate this without an advisor? I mean, we don't do surgery on ourselves. We don't fix our own cars 99% of the time. We don't do this stuff, right? So why would somebody not want to have an advisor or a professional? And I've always said we are the worst. We're our own worst enemy in this industry. We're so quick to discount commissions. We're so quick to do this. We're so quick to give ourselves, give up our value that, we have to learn to keep providing and building the value to us so that we are looked at as professionals, like attorneys, like physicians, like financial advisors, right? So this is where we have to get super good at building our value proposition, right? So again, if you guys don't have a buyer like guide or presentation, build one. Learn to be a consultant, right? Because this is going to be so important. Aaron, you got something to say?
Yeah, really quick. That story that Pamela just said is something that needs to be in a video as a client testimonial, because that's showing again the value of it. And if you, in addition, going again, I really like you guys' video idea of sending it out to your sphere, because we are very close to, again, people laying in bed thinking about buying a house, and they're just flipping through, their phone, and they see a house they kind of like, and they're clicking on the Zillow person. They're clicking on the agent next to the house because they think that's who they're going to go with, who is also more than likely representing the seller, by the way. So that's a whole separate issue. But that's how they're getting in contact. But if you do internet leads, they are 100% coming. You will get shopped. Okay, you are going to get shopped, and they're going to be very analytical and very cold, and they're not worried about the relationship because everything is done via text and email, and they might not even meet you face to face because it's all dollar and cents to them. And maybe that's not your clientele, but you're gonna have to turn and burn those people and do a lot more units. But there's a reason why you pay top dollar to go to Manny's Steakhouse versus,
Texas Roadhouse.
yeah, exactly. The quality is what you pay for, right? And you want to make sure you represent that way. And other than you audibling it to people, let your clients be your word of mouth. Pamela, that would be an unbelievable testimony. Now, granted, you can't do that one because of how it went down. But when you have situations like that, let your people tell you how much money you save them. Because if you save them from having to do a $30,000 addition because there was a operational issue because you got them to do the inspection, who cares about the 2.5% that you're getting?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you earned your money. So
Right.
I think that'd be a great opportunity.
She's still, am I on mute? No, okay. She's still digging into every search I send her too. So I'm just waiting for her to come back and go, okay, we're walking from that house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I can make that video.
Yes. Yes. Well, and we have to be careful. I mean, I don't know what Arizona laws are, but we have to be careful in Minnesota, right? To like act as a representative until we're hired, right? So, to even to say, I think you should do this, or, we have to be very careful with that. So I do like the fact that we have to now get a written contract, right? Before we're even out looking at houses. Like, I think that's going to help alleviate a lot of these issues. But if you guys don't even know where to start on, like, how do I even do this, start building my value proposition or building my buyer's guide, what I would suggest is two things. Make two lists. First, make a list of every single thing that you do. Think about your transaction from beginning to end and just write a list. Yep, I consult with the buyer. Yep, I set them up on a search. Yep, I schedule showings. Just even every little thing. And you will be amazed. And you can even put that in some kind of a document. Here's what I do. I mean, people just don't think about all the little things you have to do. Schedule showings, cancel showings, reschedule showings, drive people around, meet them everywhere, take calls at 10 o'clock at night because you want to get the offer in. It's all of those things that buyers, and rightfully so, right? Their job isn't to think about everything you do, but you should make a list of that so that if you're ever needing to provide your value, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I not only open doors for you and get you in the house, but here's all the things that I will do on your behalf. And I think they'll be shocked when they're looking at a couple pages worth of all the stuff you do, right? And then on top of that, whatever you're making, you're splitting a portion of that with your broker. You're splitting now a portion of that with Uncle Sam. You're paying for your gas. You're paying for all the things. They need to understand our business. They don't, and we can't expect them to, right? So that's where you get to build value. And here's all the things I do. And, here's what you're asking me to do it for. when you only want to pay me $500 or $1,000 or whatever, right? Whatever you're negotiating, right? So find a tactful way to be able to present all the things that you do. Secondly, okay, so had two things and I'm getting old. I can tell it just went out of my brain. My first one was write down all the things that you do. Oh, all the things that you do, and then make a separate list of what are all the things you bring to the table? What are your designations? What's your experience? What are those client testimonials or those things that you can share that you've saved people? Why should somebody pick you? Make a list of why a buyer should pick you over anybody else, right? And this is where it's going to get tough, right? These teams that have buyer agents that just started 6 months ago, got their license, and they're jumping on a team to try to gain experience. You should be able to blow them out of the water, right? I mean, you should be able to say, I've been doing this. Here's what I can bring to you versus someone who just got licensed. Who do you want to work with, right? So and if you are someone that just got their license 6 months ago, start really thinking about what can I do to build value to myself, even though I'm new to the agent, to the industry? What can I be doing now so that come July, when these changes supposedly go into effect, I've built value between now and then that I'm going to hopefully win a few more deals, right? Bob, you've been doing this for a long time. What you got any words of advice in regards to value proposition and what we should be doing to prepare ourselves?
Nope.
Nope.
You hear me now?
There you go. Yep.
Can you hear me now? Sorry,
Ready?
I was shop vacuuming a bunch of water in my admin office. So sorry, my hair is like Einstein right now. I'm sweating like whatever.
Well, you and Jen will be fine. She just got done running, so she said she's all sweaty too.
Yeah, right on. So I think there's two things, being a listing agent, also being the buyer broker. I think being the listing agent, we have to be really clear with our sellers about expectations as well. I just put an Instagram link. One of the top producers in our marketplace is already taking advantage of this. He says that we don't know what we don't know, but yet he's predicting this is going to be a huge deal. And he is so excited to get realtors out of the business. He hates working with real estate agents. So he's going to be one of those people that is going to be listing homes and probably not offering a buyer broker payout. He's going to be educating his sellers on that. So we have to be prepared to run in those situations. So to your point, Kelly, we got to make sure that our value proposition is there for the buyer. I think it's going to be extremely challenging getting 2.7% out of a buyer, even if they're 20 to 30% down. So we got to figure out, how do we work through that? One of the ways we might be able to work through that is getting their closing costs at least covered by the sellers. So then that money that they would have had to pay otherwise, now they can pay us per the buyer broker agreement that we have. That's one thing that we're going to talk about as a team, is kind of implementing that piece of it. As far as a listing agent goes, I am going to still highly suggest to my sellers that your quickest and the best opportunity you're going to have to get the highest price point possible is to open your home up to a variety of buyers. And the best way to do that is to offer co-op fees. So that's going to be in our listing presentation as well. Mr. Seller, what's your expectations? If your expectations are that you want to keep your commission rate down, this is how that will look. If you want to pay a buyer broker X amount, that's how this will look. And we can probably expect a sale quicker. And then if we don't offer a buyer broker commission, how do you feel about dual representation? Because if we don't offer it, more than likely, we are going to be the one representing the buyer. How do you feel about that?
Right.
So those conversations are going to be huge. But to your point, Kelly, too, I like the fact that things are going to become more transparent, because it is, and I'm guilty as probably everybody else on the call here, where I've signed buyer broker contracts at execution of the offer, handshake agreement, etc. But now we're going to be doing that much earlier in the process, and I think that's good. overall,
You
I
have
do
to,
really
right?
think that's good. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how our representation contracts are granular now based upon, you know, opening up a door for a Zillow lead that you don't know from Abe to somebody who you've been working with for a year to find that exact right lakefront property, you know. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. But Jennifer
I'd
and I
like
were
to
on.
add to
Oh, go ahead,
something.
Jen.
I
Yeah.
just want to add, I think it's going to be paramount that the seasoned agents take a stand to support buyer brokers and each other in this business
Mhm.
and align ourselves on the same page that, hey, like, let's not beat each other up because we all are going to experience being on the other side. And we have to remember that. So
Yep.
whether you're a
Well,
listing
I was
we
just
just,
gonna say, before you jumped on, Jen, we were just talking about we're our own worst enemies, right? We devalue ourselves.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, so
But these are the conversations as a seasoned agent that you're going to want to have with your seller, and they get it. I just had it with a seller the other day. I'm like, these folks that are bringing buyers in, they've been working with these buyers for a long time, weekends, nights, away from their families. They deserve to get paid.
Right.
It's not like we're just getting paid showing one house, right? And that's the misconception. We got to go back to really our worth. I mean, we've shared our worth all along. We get paid a lot of money, so now we just get to tell people why, and and
Yeah.
uh and not like let this take over our business. Got to kind of stand up for our business now, and rally around each other as much as we can around this lawsuit.
Yeah.
right. I
And
agree
we're
with
all going to have those agents in the marketplace that are the listing agents, right? Where they're going to want to control both sides of the deal. You're going to see that's apparent in that link I sent over to you guys. That's going to be some of the extreme things we're going to deal with. I'll give you an example of something that happened to me yesterday. I have a client coming into town tomorrow from Oklahoma. She wants to see a listing that's in a coming soon status. So I reached out to the listing agent, asked, hey, how long before photos are going to be available? We want to see if it's going to be an option, et cetera, et cetera. She responded back to me. She says, well, I just want to let you know my seller's having a hard time paying a commission to a buyer broker. I'm like, really? You're already letting this stuff? And she's a top listing agent in our marketplace. And
Yeah.
she's not educating the seller, obviously. And she's already seeing, from my perspective, what is the opportunity now going to be for me to discount commission to, let's say, a 4% and be able to control both sides of the transaction. So we're going to be seeing that, I think, from a lot of the heavy listing agents, especially the heavy listing agents who've always rode on that side of ethical and not ethical. And I can name 3 of them. I'm not going to name them, but I guarantee in our marketplace, we're going to be dealing with those 3 agents. They're going to be taking advantage of this somehow, some way.
Yeah.
So we got to be able to deal with that.
Yeah, we've been on probably a handful of these calls, and like I said, I think someone else said it, that there might be a little bit of this wild, wild west stuff going on. There's going to be, like we said, anytime there's changes, it's an opportunity market, right? It's an opportunity for new business models, good or bad, right? It's just an opportunity for somebody. So we're going to see a lot of creativity that's going to come to the forefront on how to work with buyers or how to get paid, right? And like I said, some's gonna be good, some's gonna be bad. But that's even more more important for you to kind of get your game plan together on your value proposition and what you bring to the table, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to really say we need to do this or we need to do that because we really don't know how this is all going to shake out. But you better be prepared, right? So if buyer says, why should I choose you? Or why should I pay you your X% that you want to get paid over, Joe Blow over here who's going to do it for a flat rate or whatever, you've got to be able to build value into that, right? And give them a reason why they need to choose you. And, we just need to be prepared. If we're not good at that, our income's going to change a little bit, right? We're going to, I think regardless, we need to be prepared that our income probably will change a little bit, right? As this pans out. But you just have to be as transparent and as good as you can be to build value to who you are.
Yeah. And I think one thing that too, we're going to emphasize with our team as well is having that conversation super early in regards to agency relationships, contracts, how it all looks. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are going to be scared to have that, but I'm telling you right now, everybody's going to be under the microscope. So, you know, and they're going to be waiting for an agent not to do it the right way. And the next thing you know, you're going to have a complaint coming from either Commerce or Realtor Association. So you're going to want to make sure you're on your A game as far as presenting these contracts and actually going back to the old way of having buyer consultations.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, we got to get back to work. I hate to
we
say
got to
it,
get
but
back to work,
it's
and
been
that's
pretty
where you
easy.
that's where you get an opportunity to say, hey, there's 90 things I do for you as a buyer's agent. Do you realize what those are? Let's go through all those.
Yep.
You know,
And I
so
think
that having that, yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think to combat those agents that want to take the sellers and do both sides, you know, you always have to have in the back of your mind that you're competing with one of those people when you're talking to your sellers. And to do that, you know, I think it's a very simple conversation where you just say, okay, you've got agent A that wants to represent both buyers and sellers, and you know, so you're relying on agent A to bring you the buyer when he has a limited ability to, or limited reach to have the buyer, and because agent B has the buyer, but you're not going to pay him. So there's no way agent B is working for free. So they're not coming to look at your house, right? So you've got thousands of agent Bs that may have your buyer sitting here, and agent A may not have it. So is agent A doing the right or ethical thing for you to limit your exposure to the buyers?
I think you just have to, like Bob said, it's just having conversations, right? You're sitting with the seller and you're saying, here are your options. You know, you can continue to do it the way we used to do it, right? Offer X amount towards a buyer, pay for that fee. And you're going to keep your pool of all potential buyers as big as you possibly can. If you don't want to do that, and that's completely up to you, you just need to know that this group of buyers, that buyer pool could shrink, right? Because not every buyer is going to be able to afford a down payment, closing costs, and now a buyer agent fee, right? So it's going to exclude some buyers. And so that's up to you, but you just need to know the ramifications of your decision, right? You do you. And obviously you're not going to say it quite like that, but you know, our job is just to guide and counsel, right? I mean, that's what we're hired to do. We don't make decisions for our clients. We just tell them their options and the goods and the bads and the uglies of those decisions, right? Even when we're writing contracts, we don't fill in blanks. So get really good at being transparent, being a consultant versus, you know, a salesperson, right? Get really good at that. And we know that, I mean, I almost think it's going to open up 10 years from now. We're going to have lawsuits from buyers. I have a feeling saying,
absolutely. I think it'll be
I
faster
was
than 10 years.
eliminated from being able to buy that. I'm
Yeah.
discriminated against, right? I mean, I just can see the writing on the wall of this, and I hope that they're thinking big picture on all of this. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah.
Real quick, Bob brought up a good point. So there are three costs. There's your down payment. So let's just use the first time home buyer of 3%. Okay, that they would have to put down. You have your closing costs, and then you have potentially the agent's compensation, right? So there are three separate things that the client potentially might have to pay for. It is imperative, whether it's me or anyone you work with, or maybe the client you're working with already has a pre-approval with a bank you don't have a relationship with. It's important to call that loan officer and get documentation of what their quote unquote fee sheet or estimated costs are, because it's going to allow you to help understand where all the money's going and what's available, and to really open up those lines of communication. It's not just a text message, hey, here's this, get my borrower pre-approved. No. It's understanding every aspect of it, because if you know that the closing costs are, let's say, 2%, you know, to get seller paid concessions like Bob spoke to, you know, and then eventually, you know, in time, like we talked about initially, maybe there's an opportunity where we can roll in additional costs that you are, or, you know, compensation that are getting provided by the agent into the loan as well. And you do that obviously just with your negotiations and things of that nature. But, you know, in some instances, you could be looking at 3% down, 2% closing costs, plus another 2.5% for the agent. You know, before we know it, we're pushing 8%. You know, not everybody has that mindset. Okay, I'm buying a $300,000 house and I got to bring 8% to the table. Well, hold on now. You know, like that's 24 grand. I don't have that. So worst case scenario, do we have that? And if not, how can we structure this to where maybe I can remove 6 or 7 grand worth of closing costs to the loan, you know? So there's a lot of different ways that you can structure it to help the client payment assistance, whether it's paying for their homeowner's insurance up front and not having to prove that money. There's a lot of different ways that you can structure a loan. But that's why I think it's important to have that relationship with your loan officer, whoever it is, and just know enough to where you can spot red flags. I think that is a big deal for an agent.
Yeah, and to know, like you said, have the conversation, know the product, right? And are there other products that might allow for more concessions if this one doesn't, that they would qualify for? Just really, like we said, the value is going to be in the beginning now, you know, as much as it is after you find the house and you bring the value to the table, but you're going to really have to beef up your front end activities and consultation and conversations, right? So that you really have a full understanding of your buyer and what their abilities are, that your buyer knows your full value that you're bringing to the table, and that the seller knows, you know, the value of their decisions in regards to what they're willing to do, right?
Yeah, any government loan, guys, FHA, USDA, down payment assistance, VA, those, you guys can go up to 6% seller paid concessions. Conventional Fannie Mae Freddie Mac is capped at 3%. So it's important to know when you get that pre-approval and have that conversation with your loan officer, what they're approved for, or maybe they, you know, they want to go conventional, but FHA is better, or vice versa, because you guys also know that affects the appraisal. Those appraisals are, you know, they have a different mindset on Govy appraisals versus conventional. So there's a lot of moving parts, and it's good to understand that going in, because it's really going to allow you to have a lot more leverage with your negotiations.
Yeah, I do, to go back to the very beginning of this session, when you said there's probably going to be changes and they're talking, I mean, lending guidelines will have to make some adjustments at some point just to accommodate this. Otherwise, I think it's just really going to be very difficult, but we'll see what all happens, right? So
yeah, and put it in the chat, guys. If when you're doing your presentations, if you don't have any of my flyers as it pertains to discounts for the VA, for anybody VA, $1,500 off, or the free appraisal, like that's added value that you can provide. And at least, even if they don't even choose to go with me, it shows you that you're dialed in and tied in to other options and what's available, and you want what's best for the client. So if there's ways to save them money and still get that 2-3% seller paid concessions, you know, you're providing a heck of a lot of value, because you can show them the math of how you've earned it too. Like that's that simple.
Exactly. Well, we are in our last few minutes here. Any other questions or comments? Jen, you're kind of quiet over there. Anything you're thinking of?
Well, unlike most of you, I am, I've only been in real estate for 4 years. And when I started was when the market was super, super hot. So since I've started as an agent, I've literally just hit the ground running, and I feel like I've been on the road for the last 4 years. I very rare do buyer consults. I do not have a buyer presentation put together, but I understand the importance moving forward. And that's why I'm here today, is because I need to take a step back and start working on these things.
Yeah,
So
you don't want to wait till July.
Yeah, and I feel like legit, like there's days I'm on the road from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, because I do work with a ton of buyers. With that being said, I know over this next year, I'll be transitioning more over to the listings for our team. And I think that's just going to be a good move now, 4 years into it. Anyways, I'm at a good spot to start making that transition, but still my funnel is overflowing with buyers right now. And I know I won't be able to keep up with them this spring. So here we are.
Now, are you guys, you work with building new construction a lot too, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So have you guys started having meetings in regards to, you know, that's a whole nother conversation, right? What are the builders going to do as far as incentive to have buyer agents and paying buyer agents? Have you guys started having conversations about that yet?
We have not. There are a ton of moving parts right now on our team, along with several new developments that we're working on. The first one being in Somerset. So we're just getting all of that in order right now. In addition to that, we're hiring on a few new agents at this time. So there's a lot of moving parts right now. So I hope to have more clarity on that in the next 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
Well, I
but-
see in the chat that Bruce sent you our buyer consultation. Bruce, did you
Yeah.
send our high note thing too?
No.
Send Jen the link to high note, like just our little, like setting up the buyer appointment too.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I think
Yeah,
that
I
would be helpful.
just haven't really done any of that yet in the 4
Well, I
years.
mean, honestly, we have it, you know, but we don't use it all the time either. It's kind of like we mentioned, you know, it's been
Right,
fairly easy
right.
over the last number of years, but we're gonna have to get back to, you know, doing a little bit more work up front now to really show people why they should hire us. So anyway.
And just like Bob, my buyer agency agreement gets signed when the purchase agreement is signed.
Yeah,
Like,
well, we're not gonna have that choice anymore, right? So
Uh-uh.
we're all gonna get better at doing that sooner.
Right, sure.
Yeah. What I'm
Yeah.
hopeful is that we will get some, this will be a really interesting dynamic of this, is that will the brokers support and put some teeth into that agreement, right? So if we get a buyer broker signed and that buyer is the one that's responsible for paying, our fee for the transaction that they're purchasing, let's say the seller's not willing to pay it and the buyer's okay paying it, and we get to the closing table and the lender says, hold on, buyer no longer has enough funds to pay this, what's going to happen, right? Ethically, commissions should not prevent the close of a sale, right? In the past, you should not ethically allow this sale to fall apart because of a commission thing, right? It's let the deal close, then we go to arbitration because we've always been dealing broker to broker with commissions. Now this is going to open up a whole can of worms because now it's a contract between us and the buyer, right? It may not necessarily be coming from listing broker over to buyer broker and we get paid. So how are we going to be able to track down funds, arbitrate against things that, you know what I mean? Like if we get to the closing, can we stop the closing because now the buyer says he's not going to pay our fee, right? So these are going to be things that have to
100%.
be addressed from a legal standpoint. That's all part of this. So yeah, it'll be interesting and we'll just have to maybe have further conversations as it all evolves and develops, but it'll be interesting for sure. But anyway, in the essence of time, we are at 10 o'clock. Thank you guys so much for always joining and giving your knowledge and expertise. This doesn't work unless we get different perspectives and different opinions. So it's always important to have you guys show up if you can. We love seeing your faces too. So have a great rest of your week. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we'll put this recording on Empire Mastermind page.
Thanks,
Awesome,
guys.
thank you.
Have a good day. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.